All right. Okay, we are back. Uh, there's some little production issues going on in the background, but don't worry, we've got top men on it and aReNGee as well. So we're working on that. But in the meantime, we've got some losers bracket round one coverage coming up here. We've got a Lunix versus the SkiJ. So we've got a Lunix on Felon Control versus the SkiJ on Xenon Interrogator. And here to help me break down this matchup is Gabe, aka Calimdir. We ready for this? Might not be. All right. At some point, Gabe will come
We're
back to
ready.
us.
Yeah,
There we
sorry
are.
about that. I actually forgot that I put myself on the opposite of push to talk, so I muted myself. But
That's
I'm
all right.
here, and I'm excited for Feln versus Xenon, correct?
Yeah. This is what we've got. Lunix on Feln versus SkiJ on Xenon. Uh, Again, it's hard to say traditionally who is favored because the Xenon deck is so new. There's not a whole lot of matchup data or anything like that on it. But one deck's playing Dawnwalker and the other deck's playing for Steward of the Past. Do we have to go further than that in the breakdown?
Hey, but I definitely think there's a lot to talk about just between these two decks because
Mhm.
in in Xenon right now, there's a lot of variation and there's a lot of play to the deck.
Yeah.
And Feln, while we feel like it's a list that's been mostly figured out, Olunix says otherwise because he's got two levitates, a swindle,
Yeah.
some other real spicy cards in there. How do you feel about his particular build as the
Uh,
pro expert?
this nothing here is actually too surprising based on what we've seen out of the Feln decks from the team league. Like this is basically what
Yeah.
Lunix has been playing. Feln's been playing a bit more levitate lately to help with popping Aegis on Bartolo and stuff like that. And Swindle draws cards. It's just another Wisdom of the Elders essentially, and Wisdom of the Elders is a very good card. It's always more about what's Feln doing on the top end and what its sideboard plan is. You know, is it playing gifts in the side or the main with Omen. And in this mid-range meta, yeah, gifts are in the side, you're triple Vera in the main deck, and you're just trying to go over the top of these other mid-range with essentially a very big mid-range deck, right? This is a control deck, but it's playing units to control the board with Felon Bloodcaster, Steward of the Past, Black Sky Harbinger, Withering Witch, Champion of Cunning, and Vera. It's a lot of units, and they're all built to block and trade. And I think that lines up pretty well against the Xenon plan, especially SkiJ Xenon plan when he's on the 4 Umbran Reaper top end, which Feln is pretty okay with matching up against.
Yeah, I think this particular build of Xenon is a little bit worse off against
Mm-hmm.
Feln because he's more focused on the Entomb and the Void overall with more Dark Returns and with Umbran Reapers. Um, but but yeah, so I think Linux is going to be favored. I'm
All right.
still not
This game
100%
is
with you.
underway,
Okay, great.
and we've just started off with SkiJ getting on the board first with an Argentport Instigator. Lightning Storm not going to be able to answer that, but a Lunix digging with Wisdom. A Lunix was on the play, so that is at least a boon for loading up. And Blistersing Wasp, not exactly the kind of threat you want to be presenting on turn 3 in this matchup. SkiJ doesn't have double shadow yet. We've seen this from a couple of these uh, Xenon lists so far where they're struggling at their shadow. And the thing is, SkiJ needs to hit triple shadow in this deck. And that's it's not the easiest thing to pull off, but those 4 Vera's favor and the 1 Seek can hopefully dig him out of it. It's just in the meantime, he doesn't have great threats, but hopefully this monument can turn into something threatening. And still, he has control of the board.
Yeah, Linux, while he's been able to deal okay so far, and he's drawn a lot of cards. He doesn't actually have anything to put on the board, and these witches can only—I mean, having too many witches is never great. He's
Mm-hmm.
only got the one witch storm, and then he's out of gas.
Yeah, this isn't the exact point of the game where you want to see your second witch. You're usually happy to see it at some point, but not when you're sitting at 14 with nothing else in hand but a lightning storm. We'll still see a witch come out here. It can trade with something, even if SkiJ has a Xenon Obelisk or something like that off the top. Lightning storm will be able to clean this up. But Lunix is going to get kind of low here, especially if SkiJ opts to do something like use Xenon initiation on this Rheinarch or something like that.
Yeah, that would be pretty interesting. Would let him get in quite a bit of damage this turn.
Yeah, if he does that though, he won't be able to play the Titan here, and his whole board still dies to Storm. It just means then you have a Dark Return that can bring back a killer Overwhelm unit, and your opponent's very low on health. So it'll be interesting to see if SkiJ opts to go with that line, force them to have the Storm, and even if they do, you've got an okay backup plan of Titan or bringing back killer Rhinos. And yeah, here we see the Xenon Initiation come out.
Well, yeah, so he's going to take the really aggressive line here. I was in my head interested in the play Titan and have the killer interrogator available to you. But
Sure, but
this is
that's banking on getting
aggressive.
double shadow, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
Sure.
so instead, this puts your opponent at 5, and even if they have Storm here, you can get back a 7/3 killer Overwhelm unit. So that's kind of a useful thing to have access to as well. But yeah, I mean, he's starting over here, but again, he can start over with a Titan, and that's what we see. The Dark Return on the Rheinarch, the Titan comes down. Lunix has some good stuff here. Found a Champion of Cunning and a Bloodcaster last turn off of Wisdom, and but because there was that one turn that Lunix opted to play a Primal Sigil over a Shadow Sigil to get to a 5/1 split, this Champion of Cunning won't be buffing up the Feln Bloodcaster here. Linux had the ability to go 5 Primals influence, 5 Shadows influence if he had sequenced his power slightly differently in the early game, and we're seeing that kind of be a problem here. Lunix is now at 5, and again, SkiJ's got a big killer Rhino, and because this Champion of Cunning is only a 5/5, it's not going to trade with this Sandstorm Titan, and neither is this Bloodcaster going to trade with Rheinarch. We see the Rheinarch go against the Champion. That's weird to me. If you just kill the Bloodcaster, you get to keep your Rheinarch, and they have to chump block Sandstorm Titan or they die. So
yeah,
that was just a bad play by SkiJ. There's
yeah,
really
it's definitely interesting choice.
the
2 turns ago, Linux has been in a really tough spot, not being able to play the Witch because of that Rheinarch, but now it's a lot easier. But I guess he just wanted it to die so he could Dark Return it again.
So a Lunix, yeah, but he just drew Dark Return off the top. He didn't know he's going to draw a Dark Return there.
No, he has foresight.
But yeah, a Lunix with the Vera off the top is huge. Steward of the Past can come down, but this Rheinarch is an 8/4 in hand, and anything that has 5 health, it'll get eaten up by the Rheinarch, and a Lunix will die to it. So in comes the swing from this Champion of Cunning. And the thing is, if the Lunix doesn't play anything, he can still just kill her on the Vera and then swing in with the Titan. So Lunix is in quite a bind here. He's going to hit A space and see if SkiJ makes some mistakes here.
Yeah, I mean, all that has to happen is for SkiJ to take his turn, play the Rheinarch, kill a champion, right? That's it.
Yeah. Yep. As long as he targets something with 5 health with this Rheinarch and not the Vera, SkiJ wins here. So we'll see if he finds that line. Again, he doesn't have information about Lunix's hand, but I don't think if you're SkiJ, you can afford to play around Deathstrike or Annihilate here. Your opponent's got 2 Champions of Cunning and a Vera in play. You're dead unless you kill a Lunix here. So I expect him to go for the kill.
And there it is. Wow, stuck on one shadow, and he still pulls it out, though. It was close, and some interesting plays on both sides there. Not sure who played that better.
Well, SkiJ won, so clearly he played it better.
Yes, you're right.
But we'll go to sideboards now and see what the players do here. On Feln Control side, they've got 3 Annihilates they can bring in. Sure, they don't hit Ion or Wasp, but those aren't exactly what I would call must-answer threats. And it hits a whole lot of other things at fast speed. So I expect those to come in. Do you think Feln's going to bring anything else in here?
I like the Annihilates, but yeah, I don't think anything else really comes in. It's just stuff is a little too awkward. There's too many big units. A lot of it is focused on these armory decks and other big control decks, or focused on yeah. It's his deck is mostly about going bigger.
Yeah.
In the sideboard.
Yeah, I expect like Linux will just maybe shave the levitates because you don't really need them as utility in any way, and just bring in the annihilates, and maybe something else gets shaved in, and nothing else is going to get overhauled, right? You're a control deck against a time mid range deck, and that's kind of what you're built to handle. On the other end, though, Ski J's, I don't know, has that extra Amber Monument that could come in. I'm guessing the Blister Sting Wasps get cut altogether or mostly cut. You stick to the Obelisk plan. The Umbran Reapers aren't super exciting. Those probably get swapped for some combination of Stewards or Carnosaurs. Um, you could bring in Sabotage here. I'm just not sure if you do, though.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind Sabotage, Steward, or Carnosaur. I think they're all pretty
Yeah,
good in this matchup. I think there's at least one card worse than them in the main
right.
deck for sure.
Yeah, like Dark Return is good, but loses its luster against a deck playing for Steward of the Past. Same with Xenon Initiation. It's good, but your opponent's playing is definitely bringing in Annihilates. Wasn't actually and has the 3 extra Death Strikes on top of it, so that leaves some issues with playing the full 4 Initiation. So I think we see them shift away from that kind of graveyard recursion plan in totality and just have better standalone threats.
Yep. And so I think players are into game 2 now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, going back to just to touch back on Levitate. So I did some experimenting with Levitate when I was getting really crazy with Felnscar. I think you remember. Desperately back in the days of everyone playing Rakano, I was desperately trying to find ways to beat it, and ultimately I came to the conclusion that Levitate wasn't good enough. There's just too many situations where you're like, okay, let me hold on to this Levitate until there's an Aegis.
Yeah.
And I noticed Linux is only playing 3 Varus favors. So I really question the
Oh,
Levitate
yeah.
include.
Yeah, anything less than 4 Vera's favor is a sin in my eyes. Although Linux isn't the only one having deck building sins here, with the Ski J only having 3 main deck banish and doesn't even have a 4th in the sideboard. That card's insane. So,
Yeah.
there's always going to be little things I disagree with. We're both deck building sticklers, but still, overall, very powerful list going on here as this game's underway. And Ski J, again, on the play with that turn 2 instigator, gonna get in for some damage here with it until this Bloodcaster tries to gets the butt in here. But the rest of Ski J's hand, not super appealing. Double initiation and a death strike.
Yeah, he's gonna really like this Annihilator, this feeding time. Once it comes down, Skij's hand is gonna be basically empty until he can
Yeah.
draw 5 power for this Reinhardt or draws another threat.
Yeah, so this is what I was talking about, where Xena Initiation was kind of the key to Ski J winning that last game, right? Initiation with the overwhelming unit, but here it's a little awkward. But with this Varus favor off the top, means he can make a 4/4, bash it in, and finish it off with Varus favor, because Varus favor is a card that you should play as a 4 of.
How do you feel about that sequencing there from Skij, not playing the Varus favor first to hide the Shadow Sigil?
It is what
It-
it is. It doesn't. That's not really going to change how Linux plays out here. Like, you could be a bit tighter on that sequencing, but it's
yeah, I think
it,
people make
it's
that
fine.
out to be a bigger deal than it actually
Yeah, it's
is.
like it's not optimal, but it's not going to change the outcome of this game in any way.
Yeah.
And here we see Lunix going in the other direction with his influence this game. Not, he knows he's not going to hit 5 primal, so instead trying to stack Shadow as much as possible, at least make Champion of Cunning or whatever else is on board get buffed a bit. But in the meantime, getting beaten down by this 4/4, going to be forced to use this Annihilate.
Yeah, and he's going to be pretty happy to use Annihilate there, I think. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
sure, he wishes he could hit a Carnosaur or something, but you can't have everything. And I
Yeah.
think hitting,
Ooh.
I mean, not that he has much of a choice, but I think Shadow is a little more valuable
Yeah.
here because of all the killer effects coming out of Xenon over getting to 5 Primal.
Yeah. So Lunix could have been greedy there and played out the 5/5 to match the 5/5, but against a deck that you've seen is playing Xenon Initiation, not maybe the smartest move. So instead, just playing it safe, using the feeding time, and Ski J draws Interrogator for turn. And here we see one of the cool things you can do is turn that kind of clunky Xenon Initiation into a different card. And Interrogator could end up killing something, but with the Lunix drawing Annihilate off the top, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely like the feeding time over developing the board. I have like a kind of
Mhm.
general rule of if you're on the defensive, removal first. If you're on the offensive, units first. It's
Yeah.
usually works out, but there's
All right.
exceptions to that.
So that interrogator dug itself into a Dawnwalker and then also found a Titan for the draw step. Meanwhile, Lunix's draw step is a Witch, and that's going to set up the toolbox for Vera very nicely here, which can now trade with this Sandstorm Titan. So we're not going to see it come in, and instead, Ski J just drops a couple of 3 drops in Dawnwalker and Interrogator.
Yeah, Lunix is pretty well set up to go into the late game as long as he's able to get this Vera online and get his 5 shadow going on, because he is gonna, this champion, if he decides to play it, sure, it'll probably die, but he's just gonna have more targets for Vera.
Ooh. So Lunix simply playing nothing there, not playing out Champion of Cunning, instead holding up a Death Strike, and Ski J finds an Ion for a turn and has a Death Strike in hand. So Ski J could go super aggro here and use a Death Strike on a Withering Witch, but ooh boy, you're gonna have a fragile board, and
Yeah.
you're gonna chip down a Lunix pretty nicely though. And his other option though is to hold up this Ion and just bash in with, say, Dawnwalker and Interrogator to let the Titan lay, or you could swing with all and just accept the Titan's going to trade with the Witch.
Yeah.
But it looks
Do
like
you
it's
think?
just Dawnwalker and Interrogator coming in.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you thought this interrogator was getting Death Strike. Then Lunix answered that for me.
Yeah. Yeah, basically a Lunix is either going to draw power and get to play Vera, so you're not holding up Death Strike anymore anyways, or you're drawing any other action, and here we see it. Steward of the Past comes down, and that's just going to be another big problem for the Ski J to deal with, going to force that Death Strike out. And now Ski J's got to end this game before Vera comes down, because if Vera comes down and brings back a Steward, it's going to be a rough go of it. And here we see the A space come in from the Ski J, which finally gets to trade with that Sandstorm Titan.
And that is a nice draw from Lunix. And he chooses to play the champion first so that he can get it back once he plays the Vera next turn. I think
Yeah,
that's a
also
fair
bait
line.
out this Death Strike, because Ski J drew a second Death Strike. I think that was a big
Yeah.
influence on why he used Death Strike last turn. And that pays dividends from a Lunix. The Vera dodges it, and now he draws a Black Sky Harbinger off the top. Just another excellent card that, even if that dies, it already gained life, and now you can set up Vera, bringing back Witch, and then bring back Harbinger, and it's just a really nice setup.
Yeah, the Harbinger was actually really key because the Vera, sure, is powerful, but doesn't really stabilize him when he's at just a few life. But that Harbinger is going to really solidify the Lunix's position, especially now that it's gaining +2.
Yeah, Lunix finds a seat off the top, so that fully upgrades the Champion of Cunning, and then so chooses to bring that back with Vera. And now Ski J is staring down one hell of a board. His opponent might be at 8, and wow, found Xenon Initiation off the top. So could take out this Vera, but in order to do that, well, you can use it on your Dawnwalker here, actually, so that you're not giving up Titan. Because you can pair it with Vera's favor, right? You don't have to use Titan to take out the Vera.
Yeah, I think that's a very tempting play. I don't, especially with Lunix with no cards in
Yeah,
hand and no power available.
yeah,
But
because
while
then you're setting up a killer Dawnwalker. So then it's on a Lunix to like find another Steward, which they have 3 Stewards and 2 more Veras. It's certainly possible, but and Titan keeps the Flyers grounded. So I think that would be the line I take here: is initiate the Dawnwalker onto Vera, finish with her favor. But
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. I think finishing Vera with her own favor is the real flavor way to do it.
yeah,
But Ski J gonna
yeah.
disagree.
Yeah, well, set it up with the favor instead. But here you kind of get the best of all the worlds you wanted, where you get to keep your Titan or make it trade with something good. But swinging in with it means that Ski J now has a 5/5 flying lifesteal unit reigning free and
Oh
finds
my
another champion of cutting off the
goodness.
top. And this is what we're talking about, man. This is just a big mid range deck, just playing absolute haymaker threats. And Ski J needs to get that Dawnwalker back ASAP, or get another Sandstorm Titan back out, because these Flyers are a real menace. A huge lifesteal flyer, a huge other flyer, and Dark Return is a card, can bring back both Sandstorm Titan and Dawnwalker. You won't be able to use the killer on Dawnwalker. So that's what Ski J might be debating here: is, do I just bring the Dawnwalker back directly, or do I get both units back, but it's a bit slower to develop?
Yeah, so now that Skeege's actually got the darker turn, I want to touch for a second on when Illunex played that Steward of the Pass turns ago, he caught a killer interrogator in that
Mhm.
silence, and that
Yeah.
would have helped a lot. But instead, Skeege gets back a Titan, which is super useful, and a 5-2 killer Dawn Walker is not bad, but another champion of cunning from the side of Illunex, and
Oh
I
man.
don't know what Skeege is going to do about this.
He's just got to keep looping Dawnwalkers and somehow hope Alunix starts breaking at some point. But again, I mean, this is Feln's got top decks on top decks, and Wisdom of the
Oh
Elders is
man,
2 top decks.
but
Okay,
they're both
there's some
power.
bricks. Yeah, but Skij also bricking, but is if he keeps hitting power, he'll still be able to bring back that Dawnwalker eventually via an ion activation. And in the meantime, Harbinger comes in and Skij's got a block there, doesn't want to keep that clock going and let Ilunix gain any more life than he already has.
Yeah, this is just nuts. I don't know. I mean, Xenon definitely has a lot of.
Alrighty
Okay.
then.
Okay. Well,
Champions on champions. There we go.
maybe he could draw another Titan and.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Titan or bust here from Ski J. Not even suiciding with these ions will take him out of lethal range. Umbran Reaper, though, hey,
That'll help. Yeah.
yeah, it's not a Titan, but it's not too far off it either. It dies to quite a number of more things, and we'll see if Ilunix can find those with
Swindle.
Swindle.
He's gonna get the spark off, I think.
Well, if you
He might not
swing
attack.
first, you don't have lethal. I think it's better to swindle and see if you find Varus Favor, Lightning Storm, anything. And yeah, there's
Speaking
Lightning
of,
Storm, and that will give you lethal there.
wow, that was yeah, and Swindle just showing off. Sometimes you want 5 Wisdom of the Elders in your control deck, so
Yeah, the key there is not misplaying it. It's like you can find it,
Whoops.
but maybe you shouldn't. I think we see that sometimes with Wisdom of the Elders too. It's like you can cast it at fast speed, but you shouldn't, right? We saw
Yeah.
there Ilunix cast Wisdom on their turn and found those champions. It was pretty an important thing to do. So, yeah, well played to Ilunix there, who takes down or at least takes that game. So now we're going to go to game 3, right? Ski J took game 1. Ilunix, that was game 2. So here we go. I guess they'll be adjusting their boards a little bit more.
Yeah, that was a pretty exciting match, honestly. I hope the next game is just as exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Swindle coming in clutch, just playing extra card draw. Over some there's not that many options outside of Wisdom of the Elders. Like you start getting into Trailblaze and things like that, and Ilunix opts for the 1 Swindle, which I think is a fair choice.
Yeah, and Fell actually has a decent core for triggering Swindle's thing, like the spark. Like you can just use Varus Favor in the late game. You have Bloodcasters and Stewards that can occasionally just chip in there. Like Steward of the Pass is practically unblockable.
Yeah.
It's easy to underestimate how easy the spark is to get in a list that's playing this many units.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not a unit light Feln list. He's got 4 of all the traditional, and then 3 Varus instead of 2 or something like that. And he's got the full 3 witches. I mean, Feln isn't a particularly unit heavy deck, but this is about the top end of average.
Oh man. So this third game is underway and it's not looking good for Skij. Not only doesn't have any shadow sources, doesn't even have a third power and just has a handful of clunkers here. It's Stewards and Titans as far as the eye can see. Diplo Seal off the top could help, but is it too little too late as Ilunix just breezed through the mid game, casting Swindle and Wisdom of the Elders on an empty board.
Oh
and
my goodness.
Has Harbinger and Vera already in hand with some removal.
Yeah, you don't want to be the mid-range deck stuck at 3 to 4 while your control opponent just like, yeah, I'm just going to happily draw cards all the way up to 6 power.
Yeah. Skij did hit the 4th power, but it was a depleted seat. So now he finally starts to get deploying on board and has a lot of threats to churn out. Lots of Titans and Dark Returns for those Titans and a Death Strike and a Steward. So there's some good stuff here, but is it going to be good enough to beat
2 Veras?
Harbinger, a Witch, 2 Veras with a Lightning Storm to back up the Witch? Oh man, it's removal and threats for days on one side and threats for days on the other. And I think you got to go with the pairing of removal plus threats here.
Yeah, and if a Lunex ever draws a champion is fully active, the only way that I see Ski getting at it is if he draws up a 6 power, doesn't draw any more than that, and a Lunex bricks for quite some time. Because, he's got an answer to 1 Vera. He can get some value with the Carnosaur, and then if he draws, another answer to the Vera before. Well, no, it's just gonna bring back 2 Veras. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really hard. I'm really
Lunix
reaching.
Lunix opting to be conservative here, not jamming down a Vera, instead using a Death Strike. There's a really fun thing you can do here, though, when you have this Vera sitting in hand, and that's just start jamming in with the Witch. And
Yeah.
if they ever block the Witch, you just bring it back with Vera, and it kills that unit that blocked it. But instead, Lunix just going to be patient, right? One more turn, and he can just storm away his own Witch and bring it back with Vera and wipe the whole board. So that's also a fun line of play you can do with Vera and Witch. It's just a really powerful combo as Ski finds an Instigator off the top. Can maybe trot that out with a Dawnwalker or start using these Dark Returns that are in hand.
Yeah, I think if he was going to play the Instigator, he should have done it before attacks. But, I mean, 1 damage might not. I mean, popping Aegis might matter, but, very unlikely.
So, So here, yep, I think we're going to see the Storm plus Vera just start setting up, having a huge threat. That'll clear the board and force Ski to use Death Strike on Vera, basically, but then Lunix can just bring Vera back and have 2 Veras in play, and that's a nightmare for a Xenon deck. And the big thing here is that all these Veras and things are going to dodge the Steward of the Past that's been hanging out in Ski hand.
I think that was a reasonable play. Play out a threat, kill every single unit on the opponent's board. On average, I would make that play every single game I had the option.
Yeah, I actually like this play more than Death Striking the Vera and panicking because Lunix doesn't have any other units in the Void, so this Vera's technically not a huge threat, but here we see the Lightning Storm loop comes back. The Steward of the Past was off the top, so now it permanently shuts down the Dawnwalker. And also Ski goes down to 1.
Yeah, it's been a close game. This is a really rough draw from Ski but it's also, I think, just kind of favored for Film Control.
Yeah.
They're both sort of mid-range in how they function, both decks, and Lunix's build of Film Control has, more card draw than Ski than the Xenon deck, unless he really gets something going on with those interrogators. Yeah. And he's also more void focused, which just makes the matchup a little worse for him.
Yeah, and again, those main deck stewards are a pain for Xenon to deal with. So it's like, not only is this other deck a bigger, controlling, more mid-rangey deck, but it's also shutting down some of your card advantage engines like Dawnwalker and Dark Return being way worse when stewards around as well. So it's just a whole lot of hate piled on top of hate. This Felon Control list just lining up very nicely against this Xenon list.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a number of results coming in from the losers bracket. Should we take a second to talk about any of those?
Let's see here. Yeah, a lot of results are in. There's still just one match outstanding. So it looks like in the losers bracket, Pupicitus wins over Tear Drinker. So again, anybody that I say loses here, they're out of the tournament. So Pupicitus stays alive over Tear Drinker. Manu S 2-0 over Danabor, so also staying alive. So that's one Felon Control list out in Danabor. We're still waiting on the results from Krizalio and Komodo. Level 13, David stays alive, takes out Gate Monster, so that time,
Praxis.
Yeah, the Praxis Surso greed pile, maybe too greedy for this meta, doesn't quite get it done. Unearthly stays alive. Ilya K is out.
Wow, and that was a matchup that that team they discussed between each other and really thought was favored for TJP.
Yeah, so Ilya K, I think, now is going to have to do well in the wild card because his, I believe he's not. He was sitting at 15 seasonal points, so he could still be in for Worlds. Like, he's pretty safe, but there is a chance that he ends up falling into the wild cards, depending on how the rest of this tournament breaks out. So he's going to be sweating maybe a little bit more than than he'd like to, but he's probably still a lock for
Yeah, I mean,
Worlds. We'll see.
With Skij and Paradox falling out here, who could have been potential contenders
Yeah,
there to push him out,
he's
he's gonna feel better.
yeah, he's pretty safe, I guess, with those other players falling out. As we saw, Lunix take out the Ski J, so Lunix is good. Buckwheat is eliminated, Flash taking him out, and Lothus stays alive, and Paradox falls out of the tourney. So, yeah, that is the results so far for this bracket. We've got one match left outstanding. I don't think we'll be diving into the coverage for that match, though, unless I get word from the back end there. I think we're just going to wait for those results and then come back with winners bracket round 2 coverage.